Imagine living under the rule of a man who believed in a world dominated by a master race, a man who orchestrated one of the largest genocides in history, Adolf Hitler. Born to a humble family in Braunau am Inn, Austria in 1889, Hitler's early life was far from extraordinary. A mediocre student who showed more interest in art than academics, his dreams of becoming a painter were crushed by a stern and unsupportive father. Yet it was amidst this personal turmoil that Hitler's fervent nationalism and anti-Semitic beliefs began to take root. As a young man, he moved to Munich where he would serve as a soldier in the First World War. The defeat of Germany in the war deeply affected Hitler, stirring a burning desire to restore the nation's dignity and power. It was this desire that led him to join the German Workers' Party in 1919, a small but ambitious political group which would later evolve into the infamous National Socialist German Workers' Party, or the Nazi Party, under Hitler's leadership. In 1933, after a decade of relentless campaigning and political maneuvering, Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. His rise to power was swift and ruthless. Once in power, he wasted no time in implementing policies that reflected his extremist ideologies. The Reichstag Fire Decree and the Enabling Act, both passed in 1933, effectively dismantled the democratic institutions of the Weimar Republic, allowing Hitler to consolidate his power and establish a totalitarian regime. Under Hitler's rule, Germany was transformed into a fascist state. Civil liberties were trampled upon, political dissent was crushed, and the stage was set for the implementation of the final solution: Hitler's plan for the systematic extermination of Jews in Europe. Hitler's iron fist rule had begun, and with it, the darkest period in human history. But before we dive deeper into this unsettling reign, let me remind you to hit that subscribe button. Stay tuned as we continue to unravel the story of the leaders of Nazi Germany in the upcoming scenes. Under Hitler's rule, Nazi Germany transformed into a totalitarian state where nearly all aspects of life were controlled by the government. In the grip of Hitler's iron fist, Germany was not only reshaped politically, but the very fabric of society was altered. Hitler's policies were far-reaching and invasive, manipulating every corner of German life from education to industry to serve his malicious agenda. One of his most notorious policies was the implementation of the final solution, a chilling euphemism for the systematic genocide of 6 million Jews during the Holocaust. This horrific event stands as one of the darkest periods in human history, a stark reminder of the depths of cruelty that can be reached when power is wielded without conscience. The atrocities committed under Hitler's rule were not confined to the borders of Germany. His aggressive foreign policies and expansionist ideology led to the outbreak of the Second World War. The world watched in horror as Hitler's armies marched across Europe, leaving a trail of destruction and despair in their wake. The war resulted in an estimated 75 million casualties, making it the deadliest conflict in human history. Yet, amid the terror, there was resistance. Brave men and women, both within Germany and beyond, fought against Hitler's oppressive regime. They risked their lives to protect the persecuted and to preserve the ideals of freedom and justice. The impact of Hitler's rule extended far beyond the years of his reign. The scars of his tyranny are still visible today in the memories of survivors, in the tributes to the fallen, and in the collective conscience of a world that vowed to never forget. Hitler's reign of terror ended with his death in his bunker, marking the end of an era that the world wished to forget. But remember, we must. For in understanding the past, we arm ourselves against the repetition of such horrors in the future. If Hitler was the face of Nazi Germany, Heinrich Himmler was its dark soul. Heinrich Himmler, born in Munich in 1890, was not always destined for a life of notoriety. Initially pursuing a career in agriculture, his life took a drastic turn when he encountered the nascent National Socialist German Workers' Party in the early 1920s. His charisma, ambition, and ruthless efficiency propelled him quickly through the ranks, and by 1929 he was leading the SS, the Schutzstaffel. Under Himmler's direction, the SS transformed from a small paramilitary organization into an omnipresent force of terror, with its fingers in every aspect of Nazi Germany. It was Himmler who masterminded the concentration camp system, a chilling testament to his unwavering dedication to the final solution, the Nazi plan for the extermination of Jews. His ascent to power was as rapid as it was terrifying, But it was his role as the architect of the Holocaust that cemented his place in the annals of history's most despised figures. Himmler was not just a cog in the Nazi machine, he was the driving force behind some of its most horrific atrocities. Yet, as the war began to turn against the Nazis, so did Himmler's fortunes. In the final days of the Second World War, with Allied forces closing in, Himmler attempted to negotiate a peace deal behind Hitler's back. His duplicity was discovered, and he was expelled from the party he had served so loyally. In May of 1945, Himmler was captured by British forces. Faced with the prospect of standing trial for his crimes, he chose to end his own life, swallowing a cyanide capsule while in custody. Himmler's suicide in British custody marked the end of another key figure in the Nazi regime. The man who had once held the power to orchestrate mass murder was reduced to a desperate fugitive, his life ending not in a grand palace, but in a bare military cell. The leaders of Nazi Germany left behind a legacy of terror and destruction that continues to haunt the world. From the ashes of the Second World War emerged a world forever scarred by the atrocities committed by these leaders. The aftermath of the Nazi regime was a brutal yet necessary reckoning. The Nuremberg trials, held between 1945 and 1946, were the world's response to the horrors of the Holocaust. Top-ranking Nazi officials were held accountable for their actions, and the world watched as justice was served. These trials marked a pivotal moment in international law, establishing a precedent for prosecuting crimes against humanity. However, the legacy of the Nazi leaders extends beyond the courtrooms of Nuremberg. The impact of their reign can be seen in the world's collective vow of never again, a promise to remember, to learn, and to prevent such atrocities from recurring. This vow has shaped our world in profound ways. It has led to the creation of the United Nations, an organization dedicated to maintaining international peace and security. It has inspired human rights charters and conventions, and it has influenced the way nations interact with each other, underlining the importance of diplomacy over aggression. Yet, it's a vow that requires constant vigilance. The lessons learned from the reign of the Nazi leaders are as relevant today as they were more than 7 decades ago. We must remember the dangers of unchecked power, the perils of hate, and the devastating consequences of turning a blind eye to injustice. The legacy of the Nazi leaders is a grim chapter in our history, but it's a chapter we mustn't forget. It serves as a stark reminder of the depths to which humanity can sink, but also of our capacity for resilience, for justice, and for change. The leaders of Nazi Germany serve as a grim reminder of the dangers of unchecked power and hate. Their reign may be over, but their impact lingers on,